Hi guys, and welcome to Slate Live number 11. My name is James Akers and I'm the cutting director for Slate Hair Education. We've got little Monica here as our model for today, and my sister Sophie is testing out her skills behind the camera. So, this is a bit different to how we've ever done it before, obviously. So I'm at my sister's house over in Cambridgeshire. This is very different to where we're normally doing it in Soho. And what I wanted to do for you today was something that's going to focus on things which are going to be really relevant to what you were doing in the salon. So what I'm going to be looking at doing is with Monica's hair, she actually didn't want to touch the length. She wants to keep all the length. And what I've done in the back here, because I'm not using it, is I've just plaited that hair out of the way to make sure, to be cautious that I'm not affecting that. So what I'm going to do is, working on the front, I'm going to start layering from the front vertically, working shorter in the front to longer in the back. So that's what we would call round, a round shape, pushing our weight towards the back. Now, why I think this is quite a nice way to work is because I remember, especially when I was learning, when I first started cutting long hair and cutting layers, I always did it the same way every time, which was starting at the back, working towards something longer towards the front. So every time I was doing this triangular layer, starting here, over directing, and that's just the way that I thought layers was done. But actually, I found a few problems came from that. And what I mean is for example, on certain hair textures, I would find that these layers look really liney when I dried it at the back, and I'd have to round brush it or straighten it to hide that. And also what I found is it didn't always do what I wanted it to do with the bone structure. So now focusing on the opposite way of layering, basically, working shorter in the front, longer in the back, I actually tend to do this much more often now on my clients in the salon. So guys, please let us know where you're tuning in from, if you're tuning in, how you're coping in this quarantine, how it's all going for you, if you're in quarantine or not. Give us a shout. And if you're liking the video, please like and share the video as well. Okay, so what I'm doing here, the reason I'm working this vertically first is because I want to create two guidelines.
Marina says short on the front is going to be triangular, not round, isn't it?
No. Okay, so at Slate, I mean, everyone talks in different ways, okay? So some people will talk about, what we talk about is we talk about technique and we talk about shape. So in our techniques, we have line, we have layering, and we have graduation. And when we're talking about this, what we're talking about, if you come around here so you can see, we're talking about elevation up and down. So this would be a line. Anything from here to here, that level of elevation would be graduation, and anything above that point will be layering. Okay, now when we're talking about shape, what we're looking at is on a horizontal plane, on a side-to-side plane. So for me, triangular would be anything shorter at the back, getting longer at the front. Anything round would be something shorter in the front, building more length towards the back. And that's the way that we try and describe things at Slate. We like to try and keep things as simple as possible, and that's the way that we do it. So let us know if that answers your question. Was it Marina?
Yeah, she also says hello from Italy.
Ah, hello, buongiorno. So I hope that answers your question, Marina. But getting back to this point through here, what we're doing here, by working this shorter in the front to longer in the back, what we're going to be doing is opening this area in Monica. So we're going to be opening the face slightly, opening through the neck, which is going to be really beautiful. Now I've created my one guideline, okay, that we can see from here, shorter in that front to longer in the back vertically. What I'm now going to do is create two more guidelines, working either side in the front. So by splitting that in half, what I've now got is I've now got a guide on both sides of the head. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this side away, so I'm not going to work on this side yet. Right, so, if you want to come around here, Sophie, you'll probably see a bit better. Now, how much I elevate this is going to determine how this haircut is going to look in the length. So, I'm going to come through now. Now we've worked vertically, I'm now going to work down the head around this way, in the opposite way, making sure that I incorporate the whole hairline, keeping my work really nice and clean. So anything I'm not working on, I comb that out of the way so I can see every single section that I have. Guys, Sophie isn't a hairdresser who's filming, so if you have any suggestions of where you want her to hold the camera, please just let us know, okay? So from here, what I'm going to do is, as I comb this up, can you see that I have my guideline in that centre through here? Okay, now my elevation here is really important because what I did is in my first section, when I cut it vertically, I cut it this way. If I had pulled this down here and started cutting it, then my elevation would have to start here. But because I elevated up here for my first section, I now have to elevate up to that same point to create my guide through the side. Okay, so now, if I connect it right up here, I'm going to be leaving quite a lot of length in that outline, okay? As soon as I start to bring this down, okay, the lower I come, the more I'm going to remove from the outline, so the more shaggy and more layered it's going to be through that bottom area. Now, what I want to do is create the maximum amount of layering through that front without affecting too much of the length. So I'm going to keep my elevation high. So I find my guide, which is there. And I'm just going to connect that now to the rest of the hair, only working up into that first knuckle. As soon as I get past that, I start to lose tension. Okay, just make sure I get all the way to the bottom. Right, now, what I have now is I have two guidelines. And if you want to come around here quickly for me, Sophie, what you can see is we have this length in the front, and we have all this length coming down through here. Now, even though it doesn't look like it connects too much, if I had brought this lower, then I would have connected that out more, but I actually want to leave that kind of heavy corner in through there and really lighten up more around that face. So now, if you want to come back around here, so I'm going to come through and just follow that same sectioning pattern. And the reason why this is a really nice way to do it, doing the vertical first and then the horizontal, is I don't know if any of you have done this, but I certainly have, where I've come in just straight away this way, as opposed to putting my guide from the front to back first. I've come in horizontally and I've cut, and then I've started to come off, and I've got to this point where the crown is, and I'm taking off this much hair, and I'm like, shit, okay, we're in trouble. She didn't want any layers in the back, and now she's got loads of layers in the back. So doing the vertical first gives me more control as to how much length I'm going to leave in the back. Okay? Now, because I've worked shorter to longer on the vertical, now working on the horizontal, I know I need to over-direct. So what I'm going to start to do is start to over-direct towards the front. And if you come much closer, so into where my fingers are here, can you see, if I lift that up there, can you see that they don't meet? Can you see I've got one guideline here, one guideline here? Now, that's telling me that my over-direction's incorrect, okay? So what I'm going to do is start to over-direct more towards the front. Can you see now that that's meeting? Let me comb it out for you one more time. Lift your chin up a little bit from the top. So we need to get that perfect elevation, and then they will start to meet. And there it is. So we're wondering whether Sophie's shoulders and arms are going to last for as long as I'm going to be cutting Monica's hair, whether she's going to be able to hold the phone up for that amount of time. So time will tell. Now I can see quite clearly that our guides are meeting, yeah? Guys, send us a little message. Let us know if you ever work in this way, or if you do like creating these shapes but you do it in different ways. Just let us know, give us a thumbs up. I'm going to carry on working this whole side now in the same manner.
Hi from Perth, Australia. Can you do this method with hair extensions as well?
What's the name?
Mickey.
Hello Mickey, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in, thanks for the question. With hair extensions, if I'm being really honest, I'm no hair extension specialist, so I don't actually really, I've maybe cut hair extensions when they've been in someone's hair maybe 2 or 3 times in my life, so I wouldn't say I'd be the best person to give you advice on that. However, for me with hair extensions, as long as you're being softer on the edge with what you're doing, then everything works the same, it's still hair. So I'd maybe do the same thing but with a razor perhaps, or with the points of my scissors, which will just, as it falls, it will just give it that little bit more softness. But the fact that we have a high elevation of this, in this scenario, then that's going to work quite well for hair extensions because it's going to be softer. Now, we do actually have Davide Spinelli, an amazing hairdresser all round, who's also well known for his razor cutting, who's doing another Slate Live tomorrow with a razor, because he's actually put together this incredible course that we'll be collaborating on called Razor, where he focuses purely on razor cutting. So I would tune in tomorrow to that as well and see if you can get any tips.
There's quite a lot of questions coming in now.
Okay, go for it.
Maria says, so what will the numbering system be there?
Okay, so depending on how my angle is, okay, through here, depends on my number system. Now, with number systems, they're very, when you're talking about a number system, that's a very, very specific thing. And in reality, as hairdressers, the amount of times we probably do an exact 2 to 1, 3 to 2, 4 to 3 is, it's not that often. We do it, of course, but it's not that often. So if we were to talk number system, I'd be talking back to previous 2 to 1, 3 to 2, 4 to 3. In reality, what we actually have is we have a guideline here and a guideline here that's telling us whether our over direction is correct or not. So it's probably 2 to 1, 3 to 2 and a little bit more, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question? Let me know.
Jeff O'Neill says, are you bringing sections to previous or first section?
So more to previous than to first. It's similar to Maria's question. So what I'm doing is that if I'm putting it just back to previous, if you come here, say, if you come close, can you see that they don't meet? Can you see I've got one guide there and one guide lower? So I know that I need to over direct a little bit more, and there, that's when it starts to meet. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So it's more, for me it's a bit more of a feeling. Now, when I'm getting, let's say if I didn't cut that middle section first, and then it'd be less of a feeling, I'd want to be a bit more structured in my section to get my balance. But I know that my balance is going to be okay on this because I have the 2 guidelines originally. As long as I over direct to the correct point, then my balance should be perfect. But to answer your question, it would be roughly back to the previous situation.
Annette says hello from Orlando, Florida.
Hello, Annette. Hello, thank you for tuning in. Let me know what time it is over there. What time is it over in America?
And so, Mickey from previous said, loving this, great explanations.
Thank you very much, Mickey. So, this is going to be my last section here now. Now this is actually a really good point which I want you to all look at. Monica's head then was down like this, okay? So when I pulled this up to the over direction that I thought, I could see that that wasn't connecting. Can you come and have a look? I could see that this wasn't connecting, and I thought that's strange. So lifted Monica's head back up, and I came to that exact same place. Look at that. You can see my guidelines spot on now. It's really important, guys, to be aware, okay, of your client's head position at all times, because it will massively affect what you're doing. If I didn't have my guideline down the middle then, I would have probably made a mistake.
Hello from London, it's Linda, your student.
Hello Linda, how are you, darling? Missing our little Thursdays together?
Hello from Ohio, hello from Greece. Watching from Trinidad.
Whoa.
It's
Trinidad.
8 a.m. in America.
8 a.m, wow, up early. Thank you so much.
Francesco says, hello James, tuning in now. I lost the beginning. Did you take vertical section to create your guide for the front and the connection in taking vertical sections over directing to the previous?
So I did one vertical section through the centre, working shorter from the front in towards the crown. Okay. I then took horizontal, I split that section in the middle, sorry, and then took horizontal sections in the front and used my guideline in the middle and used my elevation that I decided to then create my next guideline. So I've got one guideline here and one in the front. So what we're looking at is this. These are my guides, okay? So now all I have to do is connect each time as I work back on my two guidelines. So what I'm going to be doing now is creating that same guideline on the other side and doing exactly the same thing. Does that answer your question, Francesca? I hope it does.
Maggie Birchard says, would you always cut this style standing in front of the client?
Yes, I would. The reason being, now if you can't, it's not the end of the world, okay? Like if let's say your salon doesn't allow it. But the reason why, let me come and tell you in 1 second, let me just get this section and then I'm going to tell you. Now, as humans we have tendencies, okay? We have tendencies to do things that we're more naturally going to do. So, now, if I stand over here, okay, then where am I more likely to pull the hair towards me? Okay, that's the way we feel more comfortable bringing things close into us. So as soon as I start to push that away, for me to then really see where I am and how much I'm over directing becomes much more difficult. Okay, whereas here, as soon as I'm here, it's a much more natural thing for me to pull the hair towards me. So that's why I would tend to always stand in front of the client. Now, I'm just going to take a slightly thicker section there to create my guideline. And then I'm going to carry on in the same manner in this side. And really, when you're doing this in the salon, it's actually a really nice quick technique. Obviously, we're slowing things down and explaining them. But if you're actually thinking about it, you know, the amount of, how many clients do we have that come in and say, oh, you know, I want to keep all the length, but I want something really different. Okay, so many. I know that I get a lot of clients that say that to me. And this is a really nice way without, because a lot of people get scared of loads of layers in the back because they think it can look a bit mumsy or a bit 90s, Jennifer Aniston perhaps. So this for me is a really nice way to give your hair difference and make it feel layered and make it feel like it's not just hanging around your face, but without it looking too layered in the back and losing the length.
Stacey says, are you cutting the perimeter?
No, I'm not. In my first section, this side bit, I might be taking a tiny little bit off from elevating it up, but it's still going to blend into it. Now, let's say if I came through in this same technique, in this same manner, and lifted all this up, but started cutting off the length, either side, over-directing everything forward, and started affecting the perimeter, can anyone tell me what the shape would be in the perimeter at the back? How it would look? Could anyone tell me that? Let's get our minds thinking. We're all in quarantine, sitting there having beers every day, and let's see if we can get back to it. It's weird. This is the first time. I mean, I've done a couple of like clipper haircuts, but this is the first time I've done a haircut for probably 4 weeks. I'm waiting on the other guys from Slate, Gregory, sending me out as we're out in the sticks here, sending me some some doll heads and a tripod. So hopefully I'll have those in the next week or so, and I'll have a look. We'll be doing a lot more of these lives for you guys, which will be fun.
Some answers coming through. A lot of people saying V. A couple of people saying triangle, round, U shape.
Nice. But you're all basically right. If we're talking about short at the front, long at the back, then we're talking about round. But really it's going to come down into that V, because everything we're pulling through here, the length's going to be left into a V. So very good. Right, so I'm just carrying on through my sections, the same on the other side. I'm going to connect all the way through into the back. And then when that's done, we have much less to do. That's really the focal point. When I'm working, especially in the salon, you know, guys, let me know how long you guys get for haircuts in the salon. I give myself an hour for a consultation, wash, cut and blow dry. So I get an hour per client, which I know is probably more than some of you. So I'm very lucky. But for me, what I want to do is I want to find out where my biggest change is going to come from, okay, in the haircut, and that's where I'm going to start. So I tend to start where I have to do the most, and then focus on the next bit after that. So by using my two guidelines here, it's telling me where I need to be. We can see that that's connecting. I'm just coming through nice and clean. Using the same elevation as I did the other side. And we see we're lifting that up. As soon as I start to come down here, look how much hair I'm removing, much more hair I'm removing towards the perimeter, towards that outline. I'm going to be losing some of that length. So to keep that length, I'm going to elevate the hair up. And over direct it forward. Obviously this hair now is travelling further, so it's going to be longer.
Marina says, do you check your length from the other side?
I'll have a feel of it. I'll have a feel of it when I finish these front two sections together. I don't personally, I'll have a little feel of here, but I've got my guide here. So as long as I stick by that, then I'll feel much more comfortable. And I'm going to show you a really good way that you can check to check that your over direction has been correct all the way through when I finish this section. Really nice simple way to make sure you have the correct over direction. And let's see if I do it. Maybe I won't.
Stacey Littles has put, I always have issues with my sections, have to be small for my tiny hands, so I get overwhelmed with the sections I feel I need to take.
Okay, well that's really interesting. I think, as you can, like for me, you can have a look around here quickly. What I would try and do is remove the hair that you don't want and keep everything super clean. So I've removed that, and then when I'm focusing on that top, then remove the hair you're not using, okay? Get that comb in the underneath. Now the biggest thing, the thing that you don't really get taught, I think, in the salon very well, but is probably the most important thing about cutting hair is combing. Okay, now what I find a lot of people when I teach this technique to them is they end up with that. Can you see how we've got this saggy root here? All right, now what we want to see is this. Can you see that tension on that elevation? Now, what people tend to do is, if you stand back a little bit so you can see well, is they'll go right, okay, and they'll go right, and we need it to elevate to about here, right? And that's when you see this saggy area. So what I tend to do is I tend to get that hair on my fingers where I want it. So I know I want it about there. Then the comb goes in at the root, sorry. I can flatten my comb, my fingers will follow, and that should help you out a little bit with your tension. Now once I've worked that, I can get the hair on the underneath if you're struggling, and then just start to connect the dots. But I know some amazing hair cutters that have got tiny little hands. And I think it's just about, having that confidence. I think we get lost in hair a lot of the time. I feel like, I remember for the first few years of cutting hair, I found that I used to get lost a lot of the time. And I used to get beaten Now, I wasn't in control of their hair, became in control of me. And that was a really big struggle, and becoming in control was a big thing for me, being able to control hair how I wanted it. And that's all really comes through the comb. So a tip would be to really focus on your combing. If you can't comb hair well, you can't cut it well.
Nikos says, is it best to cut from the bottom upwards than work from the top back down?
So I presume you mean working from here and then across, as opposed to working that way down. I mean, for me, it's what way your scissors are pointing. As long as when you're creating your guideline, what I would do is make sure that you realise you pull this hair from the bottom up when you've got your hair here. So let me just show you quickly. So if you're about to connect to that, I would pull this up. If you don't want to cut any length off, make sure you're not cutting any length off. If you can see, Sophie, if you look at this angle in here, you can see from me pulling that from there, then I've got that perfect angle on it that I wanted, alright? Now, maybe I wanted to take all of that out, and then I would have had to check that that length was okay. The same when cutting my first vertical section. Now, if I just start cutting at the front, alright, and I don't check where my length is, I want it at the back, then I'm in trouble, alright? So maybe if I stand this side, you can be able to see. So when I'm looking at this, I'm checking that length I want in the back. I'm like, how much hair am I going to be cutting off that? Then when I've got it, I put in my guide. So I'm always thinking ahead. It's like I check this length in here and I know how much I'm going to be taking off in that back bit. Does that make sense? Let me know. Hopefully it does. You alright under there? Alright, so just make sure I've got all the hair, connected. And because I'm using a nice high elevation, even on this kind of texture hair, it shouldn't go liney at all, it shouldn't be heavy in the layering. The layering should be really flowy and loose. Now look forward, perfect down. There we go. So now we can see what I'm going to do. So the way that, I told you I was going to show you a way that you can check this. Now this is how we check it. Now we know that we've started off with a vertical section, working short to long in the back, and then we've connected on that horizontal, using over direction to make sure that we match this. Now if I pull this straight out at the back, so if I elevate this straight out from the head, then if my over direction on both sides is correct, then this should join up at the top. If it doesn't, let's say the middle bit's shorter and the sides are longer, then I know that I've over directed too much. Okay? Let me know if that makes sense. Can we see? Come on, have a look. We're connecting all the way through, which is what we wanted. Alright? So that's good news, that's a good start. Now, what I've done here is Monica wears her hair up both in the middle and to the side. So what I've done is I've done this to the middle. So we're going to work that balanced all the way through. Even though I think I'm going to start it from the side today, it's a bit of a difference, we're going to, we've cut it from a centre parting, so that means it has balance all the way through. So guys, please let me know if you have any questions at all, if this is making sense to you. Please like and share the video, leave us a comment, we'd really appreciate it. Right, now, I know you look a bit like the ring at the moment when I've done, I'm sorry, but...
Do you want me to come around the front?
Pardon?
Do you want me to come around to the front?
Not yet. I'm just going to release the back now. I'm going to release this plait.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm just going to keep everything wet. For me, when I'm working, I like to keep everything wet, so I can keep everything even and everything evenly controlled. So guys, before I start on this back, I'm just going to give you a quick recap, okay? So, what we've done is we've started with a vertical section from the crown to the front hairline, okay? We've elevated this up, alright, and worked cutting angle from shorter in the front to longer in the back, which we would call round. Okay, now from this point, we've then come through on the horizontal and elevated up to the same elevation as that front bit and worked our guideline through into the side. We've then, using these two guidelines, connected all the way through to the back, doing the same thing on the other side, making sure we're nice and balanced, alright? And really, on a visual, if you come around to this front for a second, so you can see, I mean, you can almost visually just see that we have this nice balance through here. Do you know what I mean? You don't need to go over it, over and check. And it depends on your confidence and your level and where you're at, I suppose. But, you know, for me, I'm happy if I can normally see if there's something wrong. And by pulling this up at the back, I've checked and I can see the balance is good. Right, now, let's focus on this back area. So now I'm going to clip away that front bit. Sorry. You okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to start to take this plait out. Now the reason we plaited this was just to get it out of the way, to make sure that if I put it by accident, it's not going to come out with me. Okay, can I get you to sit side on the chair so I can get to your back? Is that alright? That's perfect like that. Cool. Now all I want to do now is just start to connect it back into those layers I've done in the front, so that there's a blend, okay? Otherwise it's just going to feel a bit too heavy in this back. So what I want to try and do is start to work at almost
On this side.
triangular section. How's Sophie doing on the camera? Let us know, let her know. It's actually much harder than you think holding the camera up for that amount of time.
Mm.
As you can see, I don't have any gowns with me either, so just go raw. Right. Now, from here, how do I find my guideline? Well, what I do is I pinch a little bit of this hair that we've cut here, pull it up, and then start to connect. Now we can see where I am here. So I can see that, look down here, I'm only connecting up to there. This hair is all falling into that outline, which means that my outline is still going to be really nice and full and really nice and strong. I mean, Monica has very thick hair anyway, but the length that it is, you don't want to layer it too much, but it might look too fine in the length. Okay. Now that's all I want to connect. You can see now that all of this is still in that length, which is going to be nice and full for me. So I'm always thinking about everything. I'm not just thinking about what's in my fingers. We say, you know, something that's been said for a long time in the hairdressing industry, but a really big part of what we say at Slate is, it's not about what you cut off, it's about what you leave behind. So, you know, if you have like if you think about like an ice sculptor and creating something, he's chiseling in a face into something. He's never in here looking at that little bit, he's always stepping back and seeing what he's leaving behind. It's the same as us as hair. We need to think about not what's on the floor, but what we're leaving on the head.
Dallas Landon says she likes your jeans, Monica. And Linda says, thank you, Sophie, much appreciated. Thanks, Linda. Brianne says, how would you section if the client were to have a deeper side parting? How would you balance it out so it's not super heavy on one side in the front? Is that just what you said about cutting it to the middle?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. All I would do there is I know that we'd have to be balanced in the crown, right? So I would put in my side parting where I want to cut it to, right? And rather than doing one section vertically, I would do two sections vertically. One being, just look that way for me though, right to your right. One, if let's say the side parting was here, then this would have to be shorter and this side would have to be longer. So when it falls, it will fall balanced at that front. but at the back it should be the same still. So the way that I measure that, and the length, sorry, I've got your hair on your face, I wouldn't do this to a client, but it's okay because she's my girlfriend. So the way I would measure that is, if the parting's here, okay, then the distance from the centre to that parting is how much longer your other side has to be, your longer side has to be, because that's how much further it's travelling. Does that make sense? Please let me know that answers your question.
Katie says, are you using any product in while you're cutting? It's just water, isn't it?
It's just water, yeah.
Keep it wet.
Probably a bit of Dettol because it's left over in
There's a flora, actually.
So that's...
Someone's asked for an email for contact after this.
Yeah, please contact at james@slatehair.com. So james@slatehair.com, nice and easy. Or you can contact through our website or on our Facebook page, however you like.
Sorry, Stacey Littles is back on saying, is this a concave layer?
Okay, so when we talk about these different things, alright, so it's really interesting the different ways that people talk about it. Now, to me, concave, you'd be saying that would be concave, yeah? We were talking about concave, convex, and all these things. Now, for me, I'm just going to get to face the front again.
Yeah.
Wait for a sec, just while I explain this. Now, there's only 3 different ways. When you pull that hair up at the top, it can really look, if you're balanced, okay? It's either that way, it's that way, or it's that way. And rather than focusing too much on what that's called, think about what that does and why it does that. For example, I might cut the same haircut on 2 different heads, alright, and it might finish looking like that or like that, but it's because of the bone structure that's different, alright? If I wanted to cut something that went like that on top of someone's head that looked like that, I wouldn't need to use any over direction. If their head looked like that, and I wanted it to look like that, then I'd have to use over direction as soon as the head starts to round, to create that, to compensate for the head shape. So I think what you need to start thinking about more so is why you want these things and how it's going to relate to the bone structure, because, you know, really, if I pull this up on the top, it's going to look like that through here now, okay? That's how it's going to look. Now, if the head shape was different, it might look like that or it might look like that. Okay, so it's really dependable on the bone structure. Obviously, the more it's what you'd say was concave, this way, the more we remove from here, the more weight we keep in the outline. Yeah? The more it's convex, the more weight we leave towards the top of the head, the more we're going to remove towards the bottom. So I hope that answers your question without just saying, because for me just saying, oh, it's convex or it's concave or it's square or it's round, it doesn't really answer enough. I feel like you need to think about why it's these things and how you've made it like that.
Gina Yatesy says, what kind of comb are you using?
I am using just a YS Park comb, just a normal, I don't know which number it is, but yeah, the small cutting comb.
Very great cut on this beautiful model, says Chris Ghost.
There you go.
You should make some shortcut.
Yeah, so Chris, as soon as I get my doll's heads in, I'm going to be doing some shorter, much more creative haircuts. Some, not all creative, but more creative.
There was only so much Monica would allow him to.
So yeah, kind of whipped her off into a bob today. But yeah, also please check out the rest of our Slate Lives. You know, normally we do one every month, and they're all under the videos on our Slate Facebook page. So please do check that out, and hopefully you'll be able to find some cool things. I've done some really interesting little shorter looks on there. So yeah, so let us know if you find what you're after. I think it's nice sometimes to go back to doing something that's really classic and something that actually, if we think about it, we do every day. Now, when I'm working in education and I'm teaching, then we don't work with loads and loads of long hair. We do work with long hair, but not as much as we do with short hair. But really, when I'm in the salon working, which I do, still do like 2 to 3 days a week. I do clients in the salon. You know, this is the sort of thing that really makes the money, and this is the thing that we do in our salon day in day out. Yeah, I have short haircuts now, creative haircuts on clients, but you know, in reality, this is what we do all day, every day. So shouldn't we, you know, maybe spend some more time focusing on this as well and making ourselves better at the stuff that we do? I think in any kind of artistic industry, you know, we do the stuff that we have to allow us to do the stuff that gets us excited. I think that that's a really important thing to remember, and not to become too arrogant in the sense of thinking like, oh, I only want to do this haircut, I only cut hair this way now. I think, you know, we always need to keep exploring and keep learning and appreciate the people that actually do it. At the end of the day, pay us.
More questions? Maria Christina, how long into your career did you become completely confident in cutting hair?
That's a really good question, and it was a long time. I mean, how long have I been doing it now? 12 years I've been cutting hair now, so maybe probably only in the last 3 or 4 years. And I still doubt myself at times. I still do things that I don't like so much, and you know, but without doing that, you're never going to learn. Without trying to push yourself and do things that you end up hating or that other people don't like, that means you're just being safe. So I think you need to push, you know, you need to make mistakes, and that's how, when you don't have, you know, an educator with you every single day, you need to then push yourself, and you need to go like that. But I could have been cutting hair for 40 years and still not know what I was doing or feel confident. It's purely due to the education that I had that allowed me to feel the confidence that I do now when I cut hair. And that's why I'm so passionate about education, because I think, you know, I've been lucky enough to travel the world cutting hair and, you know, being able to inspire people from all over the world cutting hair. So for me, education has allowed me to do that. So now I feel like I want to try and help people and make, you know, at the end of the day, education can make people's lives better. That's as simple as that.
When Nikos says, when textured cutting, do you still keep the hair wet or do you cut it dry?
So if I am pointing into hair, I always point into hair when it's dry. Now the reason being, because when the hair is wet, first of all, it all sticks together, okay? So I have less control of how much weight I'm removing from it. The other reason is because I can't see the weight so well when it's wet. So I'd rather dry the hair and then start to put my texture in. Or if I dry the hair and I see that weight needs removing from it, perhaps it's not texture that needs to be done, perhaps my technique was slightly wrong. So I need to go over and recheck it and maybe elevate slightly higher if something's a bit too heavy.
Genevieve says, would this cut look good on curly hair?
Yeah, beautiful on curly hair. Really beautiful on curly hair. I work this sort of shape a lot on curly hair, and with curly hair you can even be a little bit, I'm even quite extreme with it. I've sometimes done this haircut and length sort of down here and almost worked it from a fringe length sort of through here, which gives this really cool little sweeping fringe and just can make it really modern. You know, if we're going to just talk a little, just really briefly about how could we, you know, change this and adapt, because that's what we like to do. We like to adapt and change things in salon. So I've done this haircut before when I've sectioned it. If you come over here slightly, Sophie, just so I can show. So just below the crown, I've actually sectioned that off to below the ear and layered this quite short into long and underneath. So work this layer short into long. I think I did this research with Michael in Cyprus. And then work the opposite way, so working short to long here like we have in this front area. And then as that fell back, it fell over all these layers in the back and it just made it kick out a lot more. It was really interesting. So I think, you know, things are about those bases and then we can adapt and we can play with them. And that's when I think cutting hair, you know, becomes the most exciting, is when you do start to get that understanding and you can start to do the same thing in different ways and different things in the same way.
Lauren who is our cousin Jason's girlfriend, hi Lauren, if you have a widow's peak, is there a certain parting you should have?
That's a really good question. I think it depends on like the strength of it, and how you feel confident. I think that normally with someone with that much of a strong hairline, your hair will part in one place, and you'll find it probably very difficult to part somewhere else, just because of how adamant it is that it wants to do that. So I don't think there's a right and wrong really with that. I think, you know, it's with partings it tends to be more about your bone structure and symmetry. So I think if you have got a widow's peak and you can part it in more than one place, then I would play about with it, because why not?
Elliot Rowley says, Jimmy, where did you get your shirt from?
This shirt is actually my late godfather's shirt.
It's a hand-me-down.
That's a hand-me-down from him, yeah.
Is it Ben Sherman?
Yeah.
Ben Sherman. So Brianne says, so in the back, do you over-direct to the back at a 45-degree angle?
So let me go through all that with you quickly. So, what we did in the back now is we've started.
There's lots of questions coming in now.
Okay, I'll answer them all for you. Bear with me. So I've started in the back in this triangle section. I've started to pivot around. Now for the first section or two, what I did is I pinned straight out on the base, so without over direction. Now, what I didn't want to do here was I did not want to come shorter in the back than I have in the front, so I ended up starting cutting all this length off the front. Okay, so what I've done was I started to over direct in my last few sections, all right, to see if I blend. Now, I might have been a bit over cautious, and what we might see is, if I come out on the horizontal, I probably over directed a little bit too much at first. So let's see. So we can see our length in the front is here, our length in the back is here where I've over-directed. So all that means is that I just need to over-direct a little bit less in that back area. Okay? Now, do you want to throw some questions at me?
Where did you get this technique from?
So that's a good question. I've been cutting hair similar, like in a similar way, but from the vertical to the horizontal and connecting the 2 points. That was Michael that taught me that. Wait, sit right in the chair again there. Michael, so the co-founder and creative director at Slate Education, he showed me this.
Maria Petco says,
Hey Maria.
what do you like more, teaching or working in the salon?
Well, I suppose I teach more than I work in the salon, so I guess that will probably tell you the answer to it. But I like both. I think what I think is really important is that I do both, because a lot of people go into education and then stop doing any clients, or maybe do like 2 clients a year or something, and then they stop having that reality. They're used to doing like 5-hour haircuts and that's it. So I think it's really important that I can actually relate to people that are going into the salon. Because I remember going on courses and everything when I was about 17, and going and doing these courses and being like, well, like these haircuts are amazing, but first of all, I've just spent 7 hours doing them, and second of all, none of my clients are going to have them. So I think it's really important to be able to relate to a person, and that's why I'm really passionate about hair cutting over haircuts. So rather than, if you came to a course with me, I wouldn't want you to leave with 3 haircuts. I'd want you to leave to understand more about hair cutting. So I hope that answers your question.
Leanne says, confidence is a hard thing. I'm mature, aged and qualified 12 months ago. Knocked back with numerous jobs now, so I don't cut. How is the best way to get back into it without going back to school?
Without going back to school, can you let me know where you're based? So are you America or UK? I think confidence is a very difficult thing, because confidence is something that you can either naturally be a confident person, or confidence comes from being skilled at something. If you're not confident, if you're not as good as you'd want to be at something, you're not going to be confident in it, as far as I'm concerned. So, for me, you know, that's why I think education is such an amazing tool. Being able to, you know, like, rather than going to school for, you know, however long, 2 years and doing an MBQ or whatever, is, you know, going into education. For example, I'm actually working with someone at the moment who's watching, which is really lovely, who hasn't cut hair for a long time, and she wasn't confident enough to go into a salon to go and start doing haircuts, you know. She was mainly a colourist, and the difference that we've seen, I mean, I'm trying to think how many days we've done together, probably 8 or 9, so not a huge amount, but the difference has been humongous in her work, and that's only comes from her, you know, she's being more confident in herself because she's better now. She's better in the way that she works, so naturally you become more confident. You know, when I first qualified, I was always quite a confident person, but I was not confident at what I was doing because I didn't feel I was very good. So you can't, I don't think, be confident in yourself if you're not happy at the level of skill that you're at. So that's where I think, you know, without going back to school, you can start looking at courses, start looking at education, looking at one-to-one, and these sorts of things, start using things like these platforms.
She's in Australia.
In Australia, yeah, amazing. So start using these platforms, you know, this online education as much as you can, buy a few dolls, and start playing around. And you know, if you ever wanted to, please, you know, I've mentioned my email earlier, james@slatehair.com, but if you do have any questions about these sorts of things, I'd be more than happy for you to just send me an email, drop me a message on Facebook or Instagram, and we can talk more about it, because, you know, I think this is what education is about. It's important to me, helping as much as we can. Nikki
Joslin says, is it the same elevation as the front?
So yeah, so that's what we're aiming to get here for, because if we're not at the same elevation, if I now come lower in the back, I'm going to be removing more length. So I need to be really aware when I take from here, when I take my first section, that as I come round the head, that's all going to meet. So rather than coming through this way and checking my corner, I'm just going to pivot all the way round to the front now, and just connecting all the way through, making sure I don't have any little extra lengths or anything.
Nikos says, which cuts are more challenging, long hair or clipper cuts?
They're both so different, I think. I think you can't really, I would find it really hard to say that one or the other is harder, because it's so different. I think if you do clipper cuts all day, you know, if you're a barber and all you do is clipper cuts, you're going to find long hair really intimidating. If you cut long hair all day and do styling all day and someone comes in and asks for a skin fade, you're going to be terrified. So I think that, you know, it all depends on what your skill base is and what you're used to, doing. I hope that answers your question.
Do you like long hair or short hair to cut? Same sort of question, I suppose.
I personally, actually, in the last few years, I've started liking long hair more. But I still find that I prefer working on shorter hair, and the reason being, it's just because I think you can manipulate the bone structure more. I think you can change the face and the head shape more with shorter hair. I think that, you know, it's very, very, when I'm cutting something all the way up here, I've then got to take my eyes all the way down here to see what it's doing. Whereas if I'm cutting something here or here, then my eyes are there and it's instant, the gratification of what I'm doing. So that's the only reason really why. I think long hair can also be very interesting as well.
You said about like your Instagram messaging you or whatever. Can you tell people what your Instagram is?
Yeah, of course. So our Instagram is Slate Hair Education, and my Instagram is James Akers Hair. So at James Akers, AKERS Hair. So say hello. So guys, what I'm going to try and do, which I have never done, well, I don't think Monica's ever done either to her hair before, so I just fancy having a go at diffusing it. So I want to really kind of just give it a really nice loose finish. So what I'm going to do, after I finish this this section coming through here, I'm just going to work through with the diffuser. I'm going to put a little bit, because I don't have any products with me, I'm going to put a bit of conditioner in, a bit of a mask into the ends, just to make sure that it's nice and soft. Wet it down, use a wide tube comb, and then just fling her upside down and diffuse her.
Anita says, how long have you been qualified and do you like doing foils?
Okay, so thanks for the question, Anita. I actually don't do colour. I've not done colour for many years. I've never enjoyed colour, even when I was right at the beginning of my career. I actually first qualified when I was really young, when I was 18 I think it was. And then I went off and I retrained because I didn't feel confident in what I was doing. I didn't feel like I was getting the training that I needed where I was. So I had to then reassess what I wanted with my career. And that was when I came and did it. I moved jobs. I retrained for like 4 to 6 months, a long time, doing like 4 models every day. Okay, so it's straightforward for me. But yeah, so I qualified, really at 18, but then I probably then qualified again in another place when I was about 21. 21, yeah. And that was about, I almost instantly started to go into education because I was really fascinated by it, and I was really lucky where I was that they were putting me straight into it, shadowing and stuff. So yeah, it was a lucky situation that I had. So what we're going to do now is, you can see from here, from the front to the back, I'm just elevating this up, and any corner I have, I'm just going to remove. So just from here. And what this is going to do is to make that blend really nice. So any more questions, guys? Let me know.
Liz Stewart says, what pulled you into knowing who to get involved with? She's in the US, she'd love some way of, hang on. I'd love to get into some way of education in the US, I don't know where to start. What pulled you into knowing who to get involved with?
That's a really good question. What I did, I became, my boss at the time, I became part of this thing called Project X, where we basically spent a year, we met up once a month. There was like 10 of us on this little art team. We met up once a month, and we would go and just go and have different days with different inspirational people. So some days were session styling, other days were precision cutting, and all of these different areas of the industry. And what I found was I was always really into cutting hair and quite graphic, strong things. And we had a day with Mark Hayes, and I remember just loving it. And then we had a day with Mahogany as well, which was quite a similar sort of vibe and what their ethos is and what they were selling. And that's when I knew that's what I really wanted to do, is I wanted to progress in that particular field. Now, I think some people can be amazing at everything. I don't think you have to pick one, but for me, I always wanted to just do one thing and know that I was, doing it right and doing it well and putting all my energy into that one thing. So as far as where you're going to find something like that, it depends what you need to know what you're looking for. I think you need to know where you want to build your confidence and where you want to grow, and then start to research. Start asking hairdressers online. If you see someone's work, message them. We're hairdressers. We're not like some kind of rock star. We'll answer you, I'm sure, in any situation. I think people are always. Well, I found people always were much more willing to help than I thought they would be. And like my kind of heroes, my hair hero people, after I messaged them, they would message me back and stuff, and I was like, wow, that's really amazing that people still do that. So I would say find what you like and then speak to people.
Liz Smith says my kitchen looks like a showroom because all of my appliances still have the store stickers on. I like to keep things looking new. She also wants to know what you call this sectioning.
So I don't really have a name for it. For me, when we do this haircut in So we teach a similar version of this haircut in our geometrics courses. So we'll teach a long round line with a round layer. So we'll take our line and then a line up from here, and then we actually use that length at the front to then create the layering. So really with sections, name-wise, all I would say is there's 3 different kinds of sections that you have. You have vertical, you have horizontal, and you have diagonal. So really, you know, what we're working with here is we've started off with a vertical, then working into a horizontal over here, and then from the back we started with a vertical section and we pivoted around all the way from the head, and now I'm just working in horizontal as almost like a cross check, just to remove that little corner where the sections were separated. I always find whenever you're separating the front from the back, or the sides from the front, or the back from the top, or whatever, I would always just come through at the end. So my section was here. Always come through and just have a little look and make sure that you don't have any corners or any separation. That's just going to add that little bit of extra fluidity into your work. So I just want to clean this up through here. And that's just spending that little bit of extra time affecting what you're doing. Without getting the clip caught in the hair, preferably. So guys, let me know what you're thinking about the way we're creating this. Maybe you think it all makes sense to you. If you have any other questions, technical questions or questions about your journey, then let me know.
Jen says, "Hi James, can you recap please what you did?"
Of course I can. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish up
from Kingston.
Oh, hello. This last couple of sections, okay, I'm going to do, and then I'm going to recap the whole haircut for you before we dry it.
Maria Petco says, "James, did you outline the base? Did you
put the outline in first, basically?
James, did you the outline base for this haircut first, or are you cutting straight to layers?"
Okay, so no, I didn't. I went straight into the layers, and the reason being is I didn't actually want to cut the length at all. I actually wanted to keep the length that we had, okay? And because although with Monica's hair, it's almost it could do with a little bit of a trim if you're looking from a hairdresser's perspective on the ends. But I actually quite like that, like kind of a bit raw look on the ends of the hair. So it's going to be it's going to be cool, I think, to keep this length in it.
Hi, how do you find corners in your haircut? Any tips?
How do I find corners?
From Thomas.
Okay, so for me, if I just remember that corners aren't always a bad thing, all right? All corners are is weight, and sometimes we want weight in hair. So don't just see corners and chop them off. Think about why they're there, all right? So first of all, what I do, the area where you normally get corners, well, actually, can anyone tell me? Where are you most likely to find corners in your haircuts? Think about the head shape. If I get any answers in the next minute or so, then we'll go, but if not, I'll answer it for you. Right, let's get some water behind you, and then I'm going to do a nice little recap for you. Oh, Sophie's getting very abstract with her filming now. She's up on the counter.
It's because my back hurts.
But look at, Monica's hair is just, look, it's amazing. She's got such gorgeous hair. Very lucky to work.
I'm trying to stay back as well when you spray that because I don't want the camera lens to get wet. Heidi Morgan says sides. Brianne Shine.
Sides?
Brianne Shine. Yeah, where you said where do you find corners in the hair?
Oh, right, sorry, yeah.
And then Brianne says where your sections meet.
Yeah.
Christy McClen says cut her bangs.
Cut her bangs, okay.
Give her a fringe, basically.
Yeah, that's such an easy. So let's have a look at the next slide.
Jeff O'Neill says when cutting a square shape.
You'll find corners, yeah. So the answer I was looking for was the rounds of the head, so where the head rounds. So they're all right when you're cutting a square shape. When you're who said that when your sections separate?
Where your sections meet.
Yeah, when your sections
Brianne.
meet. Yeah, exactly. So that's right as well. But really, where I'd be looking for, and checking my corners, are on the rounds of the head. So normally if I pull something out here, keep your hip straight, pull something out here, right, there could be something here, and then round there as well on that crown, okay?
I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing at what people are saying.
On that crown, if I pull that out there, there's often something there, there's often a corner there, alright? Same through here and those rounds of the head. So,
Gray Peterson says, I've been having some difficulty finding my corners as well. Would unbuttoning my shirt help?
it could do. It's actually very hot out there today. Try it. Give it a bash, see how you get on. I can't promise it. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to really roughly,
Want me to come round the
section Monica's hair off slightly differently to how we cut it.
Christine McLean has said twice now, show short haircut on camera, girl.
Show short haircut on camera, girl?
Yeah.
What, yours?
Yeah. Don't know what she means.
I don't think Sophie hasn't got short hair, but we'll give you a little something. Right, so I'm just going to do a quick recap for you guys, alright? So, what we did is we started off, I sectioned off from the crown to a point just behind the ear, making sure these sections were balanced on both sides. Then I worked a vertical section from the crown to the front hairline, and worked a cutting angle that went shorter from the front to longer towards the back, alright? I then came through, split this in the middle and used that as a guide either side and elevated these up, alright? Then because of our first section being short to long, then I over-directed to the correct point, okay, which this centre section told me, through both sides. I elevated these up quite high because I wanted to leave the length in that outline. If I came lower, I would have removed more of the length, this would have been more layered through the bottom. Then from the crown, okay, I found my length that we've already cut there, take a vertical section in the back and connected over the crown, okay? Elevating up high to maintain the length in the outline. I then pivoted round, all the way round the head, okay, just to make sure, kind of give it a little cross check through and connect this all through. And just at the end, where I separated my sections, I just came, elevated nice and high, and just removed that corner so the whole haircut had a really nice flow. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of this mask, because it's all I've got.
Ashley said, how did you know how much to cut off your first section?
Well, okay, that's a really good question. I'll show you. So what I did was, first thing first, is I looked at where I wanted that length to sit in the front. Okay, so where I wanted my length to sit down here. Alright, now so after I found that, then I knew where roughly I wanted to be there. Okay, I then looked at how much I wanted the back to be layered. So I pulled up this section at the back and thought, right, okay, this is the length I want in the front, how much do I want in the back, that's the angle I need to cut. Alright? And then from there I could figure out how much I needed to keep in these side areas. Let me know if that helps, if that makes sense to you. Thanks for the question.
Hi James, after blow waving / styling the hair, do you go back and cross check it all?
No, because I've done that last bit, I've come through and I've done this cross check all the way through it. I'm not going to come back through and cross check it because I'm happy with it. Now the other thing is I'm not going to spend all day blow drying this out for you, so what I want to do is show you something a little bit more natural, something that I like, and I'm going to diffuse the hair. I'm not going to do it fully, I just want to give you a nice idea of how it's going to look. So what I'm going to get you to do is if you flip your head and look to your right, yeah, that's it.
Shall I move or not?
That's alright, I think. So what I do this with clients a lot, okay, is I'm just get them to come over and start to try and dry it in its natural form. So I don't want this to be super curly, I just want it to be really nice and natural. You're uncomfortable? You sure?
Yeah.
So I try not to touch the hair too much. The more I touch it, with my fingers, the more frizzy it's going to go. Now, if this was really curly hair, naturally curly hair, and I wanted to get quite a defined curl in it, what I'd do is I'd put my product in, and I would take sections, and I'd actually comb each section through, and let it bounce, and what that will do is it will stop it from frizzing so much, and it will give it a much more defined finish. We can really see that shape that we've got now, the expanded shape, that shorter into that nice weight at the back. Can you see it? So now, because I've cut this to a middle, to the centre, like I described earlier, I couldn't cut it to the side, but because Monica's hair is worn in many different ways, she flips it around, she wears the centre part in, she wears the side part in, I wanted to do it in a way that she could move it around a lot. So because I've sectioned it over this, I've parted it over this side's going to feel like it's got a little bit more body to it and a little bit shorter on this side with the layering. But I actually think that would be quite nice. And just go the other way for me. So if you face me, you face it that way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's going to be around me. That's it. Beautiful. Okay. Oh, very bendy. So guys, let me know if you've enjoyed what you've seen. Let me know if there's anything specific that you want to see in the next videos. I should be, hopefully within the next 10 days, doing another live video for you. But that'll be in a doll's head, so we'll have a bit more free reign of what we're going to do. But that'll be really fun. Maybe work on some shorter looks. It'll be pretty cool.
Is that on a high heat or medium heat?
So this is on, if you look at the, can you see on the Dyson, this is on the first speed, but the highest heat. So I tend to always go low speed, high heat when diffusing. Now I just want to get a really almost, I hate to use the word beachy, but I mean like a really natural finish, really natural. And once I've got the hair like 60% to where I want it, 70%, then I'm just going to give it a little blast as well. Without the diffuser. Come straight down for me now. Just like that, perfect. And having that bit of conditioner in it should just help me and stop it from going too frizzy. Should just help weigh the hair down a little bit. Okay, flip your head up, big time. Whoop. And could you just lean it back to me, lean it back. So I'm just going to come round the back now. Now what I often do as well in the salon is I would get them on the chair to slide their bum down and lean their head back like that. And that way, their hair's going to naturally fall and they're quite comfortable and you can spend 10-15 minutes getting it underneath that back dry. But we've not had, very surprisingly, any interruptions from Sophie's Chihuahua or any other things, so we've been quite lucky today. Sophie's been pretty good on the filming, I think. How long have we been? We've been a while, over an hour.
An hour and 15 minutes.
Hour and 15 minutes.
Maggie Birchard says you always explain everything very well, James.
Oh, thanks, Maggie. Maggie's an amazing client from Guernsey. So I've been over to Guernsey to go and meet her team and go and work with those guys over there. And she very recently came over to London for a one-to-one with me in our academy in Soho, which was really, really cool. We're looking forward for this quarantine to be over so we can carry on with some more of that. But she's a beautiful person, an amazing haircutter as well. What?
Nothing.
So I think I'm pretty much there. I'm pretty much happy with how that's going to be. You know, Monica hasn't got that much to do today. I don't think she's going out anywhere. So, but no, I quite like that look. But this is all about taste now, isn't it? You know, some of you probably like a much more like defined finish with a brush and with a tongue or so. But I really like natural hair. And I think when you've got hair as nice as Monica's, then you should celebrate a little bit. Okay, stand up for me. So we can see how much that's really opened up this front in here. And wherever we flip that parting, it's just going to give a slightly different finish to it. It's always going to look really cool, even if you just pop it in the middle. Kind of works in every way. So I'm just going to do one more quick recap for you guys so you can just remember what we went through, okay? For this. So I've actually left the perimeter completely out, left the outline as it was, alright? And I've started off by taking a section from the crown to behind the ears, making sure they're balanced on both sides, alright? Just going to get my comb quickly. Now, we started off with a vertical section, alright? And we started off with a cutting line working from shorter, so just turn your head, shorter into longer, okay? Into that first zone, alright? We then started coming through that front area, from that point elevating up and connecting through on both sides. I elevated up quite high, okay, to try and maintain that weight and length in the outline. If I'd have come lower, it would have been more shaggy and more broken up through the outline. Now we have two guidelines. We have one from the top, one from the side, alright? What I did was I over-directed the hair forward, alright? And make sure that this hair met in the sides and in the middle, okay? That told me that my over-direction was correct, alright? And I did the same on both sides, making sure that each time I'm hitting that, I knew I needed to over-direct towards the front because I'm going shorter to longer in the back, alright? Then in the back, what we did, you can see we've still got a nice amount of weight in that length and it doesn't look overly layered, even by pushing that length back. We started off, okay, in our back zone, working in a triangle section, taking some hair that we've already cut in the front and connecting through, alright? I then pivoted all the way around the hair just to check, okay, the reason I didn't just come up to the end of the zone, I came all the way through, was just to check that we had a blend throughout the whole haircut, right? After doing this on both sides, then just came through where our zones were separated, elevated up and just removed any little corner in through there. Okay guys, so this is the finished look. I hope you like it. Thanks for spending some of your Saturday with me. We'll see you again soon. Thank you, Zoe.